Triple XP.
One time I heard somebody say that the light at the end of the tunnel is just the light of the operation room when you're born.
So, great times ahead for us. I definitely will be affording that PC to record better podcasts than ever. Welcome aboard. This is Triple XP. Welcome to Triple XP. My name's Shane and this is Cheese.
Hello.
As you can see, once again, it is just the two of us.
I think we should just kick Mike out at this point.
I both agree and disagree because the thing is, we can't kick him out because he's got a genuine reason. He has children. We can't, if he was just...
I'm sick of that excuse.
If it was a shitter excuse, I'd be like, yep, no, get rid of him. But unfortunately, Mike was going to be here. But as we all know, that he has had not only a new child, but he's got all those other children he had before as well. And they all cause him lots of sleepless nights and pain. So unfortunately, Mike is out. Our listeners may have noticed that we were also missing an episode. Our last episode didn't happen. Unfortunately, I had COVID and was suffering pretty badly to the point that I pretty much lost my voice. Cheese decided to have a social life. Unacceptable, I know, but you know.
I think I saw Batman that day in IMAX, so I had to follow through.
Still, I mean, who says you could have a social life? Unacceptable.
Right.
To be fair, it would have just been you recording on your own as well, though, because Mike again was also tied up with his children. So
I should do that. I should just do a one-man episode sometime, just me doing like a monologue, and no one can tell me what to do.
Can you get a tambourine as well and just play it like a one-man band partway through?
I don't have a tambourine, but I do have a triangle somewhere.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Triangle's fine. Triangle is absolutely. In fact, hang a bunch of triangles from that unit behind you, and then every now and then just turn around and go ding, 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 ding.
That's a great idea. I need some chimes.
Yeah, perfect. So yeah, we are back this week with this episode. We do apologise for missing our last episode, but hey, you know, life happens. What can you do?
Yep,
it's one of those things. We've got lots of news to bring to you today. I say news, lots of fun things to talk about. There's no real news. Let's be honest. Well, it's pretty boring at the moment.
Yeah,
there's stuff going on, but not stuff we want to talk about.
Yeah, not stuff that
the news covers it all.
Nothing we can contribute.
Nothing we can contribute of a useful conversation. If anything, it's quite unpleasant to talk about.
Yeah.
What we can talk about though is Cheese just said he went to see Batman. I haven't seen it yet. Give us the download.
Okay, I know you're on the fence because
spoiler free,
of course. I have learned in the last 2 years of knowing you guys, really, that you as British people are very negative. Just in general, you're very negative. Dark side of the moon, not dark side of the moon, dark side of life, like just the pessimists. And I thought I was a pessimist.
Cups half empty kind of people.
Yeah. And it all makes sense after Mike sent me a TikTok maybe a week and a half ago about like British people in general, and it talked about them driving their German cars and all this stuff and like complaining about all of it. So after seeing that, it made me feel better. Like I kind of understood a little bit more. But I know Mike was kind of telling you it wasn't a great movie. He said he enjoyed it, so I'm not going to throw him under the bus, throw him under the Batmobile, so to speak. But he definitely didn't enjoy it as much as I did. And there are several reasons why, and I think there are several things we agreed on. Number one, it's definitely a long movie. It's like 2 hours and 45 minutes. It's a long movie.
Is that long though? Because
it doesn't feel long. It's not one of those movies like even The Dark Knight. I've seen that movie probably at least 24 times, and that movie feels long sometimes. Like it definitely has its lulls when it's not like car chase, explosions, Joker. But this movie is dark and moody, as all Batmans are. But this is much darker and much moodier, and it's not the typical Batman movie in terms of like he's the flaunting rich billionaire playboy and then he's Batman. It's like this dude has seen some shit. He's been through shit. He's just like having a horrible time living his life, and he just wants vengeance. Like that's all it is. The entire 3-hour movie. And
vengeance.
Personally, for me, I thought it kind of bordered more on a psychological thriller movie than it does like a superhero movie. and I thought that was great. The acting in the movie is fantastic. There's a couple of one-liners that are super cheesy that I was like, oh God, why'd they have to throw those in there? It would have been so much better. But it's not your typical Batman movie in the sense of superhero. It's an actual like noir detective movie. Like there's an actual story. Sometimes it gets a little in the weeds, a little confusing, but it is nice to see like this master sleuth Batman that some of us know from certain versions of Batman. And to see that on the movie screen, and even though it's Robert Pattinson, he's a pretty damn good Batman. He really is. And there's a lot of him in the movie. It's not so much like they don't get too caught up in the side stuff that they forget about him. Like he's involved in everything. I will say, I know you're on the fence, but I really think you should see it. I think seeing it in the theater would be your best way to see it. But it does come to HBO Max. I know you don't have that, but whatever you guys have that's equivalent. It comes out in like a month on that streaming service.
We don't even have an equivalent for HBO Max. It's
really
annoying.
Oh.
No, there is no. HBO doesn't operate in the UK. We might sometimes stuff that goes on HBO comes on Amazon in the UK, or sometimes it comes on Disney in the UK because under the different deals. But there's a lot of stuff that's on HBO Max that we just don't get for a long time because annoying.
We could always do a Discord movie night. We could do a Discord movie night and I can play it.
I mean, coming away from the legal ramifications of that.
There's ways to do it.
There is true. That is true. Yes, I am on the fence. I am less on the fence having heard that than I was before, because I've said this before between us, but obviously not open on the podcast. I'm not the biggest fan of Christian Bale's Batman. I think Christian Bale is half a Batman. He is the superhero half, but like Batman has always been, as we've discussed previously, he's always been the world's greatest detective.
Right.
Christian Bale doesn't give off a smart detective vibe. He gives off an angry man who wants to shout at people vibe and has lots of gadgets.
Well, and to kind of just pair off that quick, this one is a lot of Gordon and Batman together, like figuring shit out. It's not just like Batman on his own, like, oh, well, there's bullets in this wall, and then he does the ballistic tests in the Batcave with Alfred. Like it's more of, it's almost a cop, like a buddy cop movie, just a really dark one.
Just with lots of punching.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, and I do want to see more of that with Batman. I want to see more of that detective side, more of that like psychological, dark thriller side that Gotham has to offer, because what we normally just get is overused villains that we've seen a million times, because they seem to only pick the same 4 villains to ever use in Batman films, because apparently the other 400 villains in Gotham aren't suitable for the TV.
I feel the same way about Spider-Man.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Like, and I know it's because they're the most popular, whatever, but and hopefully Marvel are changing this, because Marvel are starting to bring to the forefront characters that most people have never heard of, and it will hopefully start to change that view of let's just rehash the same villains and superhero arcs over and over and over
Guardians
again.
of the Galaxy was a huge step for them in terms of like they made so much money and put some good stars in it, and they turned that into a very well-known franchise.
Yeah, definitely. And it's because otherwise it's like, let's just rehash the Green Goblin, let's rehash the Joker, let's rehash someone else.
And not even that, just like a 3rd Spider-Man and a 7th Batman or whatever it is. It's like, come on, there's other stories to tell out there, people.
And also these characters, I mean, the comics are they're a different ballgame altogether, as we know, but these characters just cannot die.
Yeah.
Like, how many times has Batman died in the comics now? How many times has Spider-Man died? How many times has even Superman's died?
Yeah, I was gonna say every superhero's died numerous times in numerous ways.
Yeah, it's frustrating. So I do want to see it. With regards to the length thing, I find it challenging, because it does sound, from what everybody said to me, is it said it feels long, and like you feel the length.
I didn't think so.
But 10 years ago, maybe 15 years ago, if you'd said to me a film was 2 hours long, I'd be like, oh, that's well long.
Yeah.
because it wasn't the norm, was it, to have
No.
films that were over 2 hours? It was like an hour and a half was kind of the expectation for most films.
Until you got
Whereas
to like
now, actually,
Titanic. Yeah, like Titanic in 1999 or whatever it was, 98 was like 3 hours long, and everybody's like, "What?"
yeah.
But
Whereas now it's the opposite. It's like if
yeah,
it's under 2 hours, you're like, well, that's a short film.
well,
Like the
yeah,
expectation is it's going to be at least 2 hours, like 2 hours 15 is kind of the standard.
especially if I'm gonna
Um,
pay money to go see it, especially in IMAX, which costs a little bit more. Like Spider Man was a good length, but it was also like there was so much hype behind that. I would not go see a very long movie that I didn't know anything about. Most of the ones that my wife wants to see, some horror movie. We saw one called Antlers not too long ago that Del Toro was involved with, but we saw that and it was like an hour and a half. And if it was much longer than that, I would have been like, I could have watched this at home and done other stuff while doing so. But in terms of superhero movies, I mean, I know that they screened a 4 hour long Batman to some audiences when they were doing some of the screenings, but that'd be a little too long.
but it affects TV programs as well now, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Like because it used to be, and I'm no expert on the film industry, but there was a time where basically anything over an hour was almost considered a feature film length. Anything that was like an hour to an hour and a half was like, yeah, that's feature film. Whereas I don't know if you've seen that Inventing Anna on
I haven't
Netflix.
watched it yet, no, but I know what you're talking about.
8 episodes long, and every single episode is over an hour long. Some of them are an hour and a half long. That's a film for a single
Yeah.
episode. I was
Yeah.
like, what on earth is going on with? Why is this so long? And also, it doesn't need to be that. I just want to put it out there. Anybody who watched Inventing Anna, if you enjoyed it, great. I didn't, because I found it a fascinating story that was so dragged out. I did not need to be told in over 8 hours. It could have been told in 4 hours quite comfortably, and I would not have had to have dealt with 8 hours of watching that. Oh, it frustrated. Like I enjoyed what I saw, but I also didn't because it was far too long. But going back to Batman, no, I'm intrigued by it. I'm intrigued. I probably will go and see it at some point. Money dependent, time dependent. Pretty strapped on time at the moment, doing lots of things, helping buddies out with like house renovations and stuff like that. So yeah, and also it's really expensive for everything now.
So okay,
Living.
let's put it this way: if you could go see the movie for free, would you go do it?
If I could go and see any movie for free, I'd go do it. You could literally say, Shane, do you want to go see this movie? And it'd be Twilight 5. No, if it's free, I'll go watch it.
So what's your biggest holdup with Batman? Like, why haven't you seen it yet?
Time and money.
Fair enough. So if you had the time and it was free, you'd have seen it by now.
100%.
Okay.
100%. Time is that's more of a, I don't really like, I know some people are really fine with it. I know like a friend of the show, Aiden, he's absolutely fine with it. I don't like going to the cinema on my own. It's
I've
just a
never
personal
gone on my
preference.
own before.
No, like a couple of friends of ours, they go all the time on their own, but it's not. To me, going to the cinema is that social experience of being able to talk about the film afterwards with
Yeah.
who you've been with, like talk about what's going on. I don't enjoy going to a film on my own. All of my friends have now seen Batman because I had COVID when they all went to see it, so I couldn't go with them.
Yeah.
My partner doesn't really like the cinema, so she's not really that bothered. So that's the time element, is that I'd ultimately have to go on my own, and I don't really want to do that.
It's fair.
And then the money is it's expensive, man. Cinema's expensive.
Everything's
I know you're
expensive.
like, it's not that expensive.
It's not that expensive here. Again, we live in two very different parts of well, not very different parts of the world relative to each other, I suppose. But I mean, here the theater's 10 minutes away, and it cost $14, I think, for an IMAX show on a weekend, and that's not ridiculous. Otherwise, it's like $10.
Yeah, I mean, ours isn't much more expensive. It's like 15, 16 pounds.
But if you take
if anything,
if you take a significant other and then you get popcorn and you get drinks and you get candy or whatever, I mean that it turns into a $50 or $60 event real fast.
it turns into the same amount of money that we could spend to go out for a really nice dinner together.
Yeah.
And I know my partner would much prefer a really nice dinner together. Like if I said to her, let's go to the cinema or let's go out for a really nice meal, she would be choosing the really nice meal in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
So yeah, there is that as well. But yeah, no, I mean, I do want to see it. I will probably see it at some point, and worst case scenario, like you say, it will come to streaming services, whether over here it's Amazon or Netflix or Disney or whatever other streaming service exists. I don't know all of them. Who knows? It'll come to one of them. Then I'll watch it.
I personally am excited for it to come to HBO Max. I think it said like April 16th in the US, but I'm excited to watch it a time or two again, just because the first time you see a movie, you kind of get enthralled with the whole, like, the score and the cinematography and the character names. There's a couple of character names that sound very similar, and they never show one of them because he's just like referenced in a story several times. But so that got a little confusing, but I'm definitely looking forward to watching it at least another time or two, because I would say it's maybe my favorite Batman movie, and I loved The Dark Knight, but this one is much darker and just super moody, and I think somebody said in our Discord, it's like the My Chemical Romance phase Batman, where he's just like stuck in it, and that's pretty accurate. But that's kind of my vibe.
And that's a strong statement to make, because a lot of people are going to be like screaming at you, no, that's the one with the Joker is the best film ever made.
I don't mean this to take away from that movie, but I mean, it's not that amazing. It was amazing in hindsight after like we found out what happened to Heath Ledger and that kind of stuff. I think that definitely added to like the legend of that movie. But when you watch that movie, it's not like the best movie ever made. It's just a good. It was doing something that other superhero movies hadn't done, and that was kind of like become super popular and in the mainstream. At the Oscars, like, that was just a big deal. So it was just so many things on top of each other. But if you watch it back, at least to me, it's not the best Batman movie. It's the best of that trilogy, though, for sure. It's the best Dark Knight movie.
Yeah. And I think what it did do at the time, particularly by the time, obviously, the third one that came out, is it was one of the first times, because this was those were pre-Marvel. Like, it was around the time the third one was around the time of Iron Man, maybe, sort of that back end of 2000s.
I think Dark Knight was around the time of Iron Man. They would have been really close.
Just those three films was one of the first times we really saw a really consistent, like, superhero continuous world. Like, we'd had the Spider-Man films, but the consistency between them was frustrating at times, and the same with the like previous ones we had. Even the X-Men, like, the consistent between the three original, like, those three X-Men films was fucking all over the place. But yeah, I mean,
Dark Knight and Iron Man were both 2008.
Okay, yeah, so similar sort of time. I mean, I just had a look. It's probably going to come. It'll come to, if it's HBO, we'll get it on Amazon, but we'll have to pay for it. So it'll be I imagine it will come on premium rental.
Yeah.
So it'll be like £15 to rent it, so you can watch it once at home. But I don't mind paying that, because that's still half the price of taking my partner to the cinema. So we can just rent it, and then we don't have to pay for food because we'll be at home. And I can drink beer and not have to worry about driving. So that's always a bonus. I've got something on my eye. Oh my God.
I assume you saw Spider-Man, though. Yes.
Yes, I saw Spider-Man. I actually saw Spider-Man twice.
I was going to say, I just watched it again. So I bought it on digital, whatever. And I watched it this morning again. It doesn't hit as hard the second time, and you know what's going to happen. But damn, it's still such a good movie.
It is a great film, and I agree with you. It doesn't hit as hard the second time. And actually, I found that the second time I watched it, not so much critical, but certain things that happened, I was like, why did they make that choice? That was a weird choice to make.
I agree.
The key one being when certain people join the rest of the gang. And I was like, this seems like a weird choice to have them join in this method.
Yeah.
And obviously there are going to be people, as it's only just come out on home release, there are people that would not have seen it yet, but if you've managed to avoid the spoilers, bloody well done.
No way. I will say. Everybody posts everything at this point. They're like, we gave you like a couple of months to see it. If you haven't seen it by now, that's on you, man. And then they just post everything. I can't even think. There's accounts that I have no reason. No, they have no reason to post some of the things they do, and they're posting all about it, all the spoilers. But if you're a Spider-Man fan, it's worth seeing for sure.
Yeah. So are we saying that we can mention the two names, because actually we're now outside of spoiler territory.
I would think so. I mean,
Without saying what actually happens in the film, the point in which Andrew and
spoiler alert.
Toby, the point in which Andrew and Toby join the fray, the way they do that doesn't make sense to me.
And the thing
It
that
just
I was
doesn't.
thinking about when it happened was like, why didn't he try to summon a third? Like, why didn't he try to see like what other Spider-Men would come through? And then I also noticed at one point when Andrew Garfield's talking to Electro, like at some point, he's like, I just thought you were black. There should be a black Spider-Man. And I'm like, well, here we go. Like, they're just setting us up all these little clues to, I think, the next Spider-Verse movie. And then that's where I think Miles is going to come into play as a live action. But that's just my theory.
But that whole line itself means that the whole storyline didn't even make sense.
Yeah.
Because it specifically said that people who knew who Spider-Man were. But Electro didn't know who he was. Because he literally said, I thought you were black. Therefore, he didn't know who he was.
Well,
so it doesn't make sense that Electro
no,
was
because in those movies, though, he never knows that it's Andrew Garfield as Spider-Man. He never knows who's under that mask.
But Stephen Strange specifically states that it's the people who know that Peter Parker is Spider-Man are the ones that get pulled over. So Electro should never have been pulled over. It doesn't make continuity sense that Electro was pulled over.
I suppose you're right. But he did die at the hand of Spider-Man.
He did, but that's not the reason they got pulled over. Steve didn't say, you know what, it's because all these people die that they're being pulled over. No, he specifically said it's people who know who Peter Parker is.
Yeah, don't read into it. So in comparison to a Batman, which are two very different movies, Spider-Man is definitely the fan service side of things, where it's like, great movie, but like the fan service is way more up there than anything. Batman, it's almost the opposite. For me, it was like, great movie, great new take on a superhero that has done well in films and in the box office and popularity, but not so much the Batman that we know. Like, it was a risk, and it was a good risk that I think paid off. But again, if you don't like psychological movies that are a little intense, that are really dark, then it might not be your movie. It's not the Dark Knight Batman. It's not any of those other Batmans. It's just different, but it's a good different if that's your cup of tea.
Yeah, no, I know what you're saying. And while we're on the subject of movies and particularly like sequels / reboots, there is a movie I did see, and I don't think I've spoken about this on the podcast yet. That I actually genuinely really enjoyed it, and I enjoyed more than I thought I was going to, and that was Ghostbusters Afterlife.
I never saw it.
So I recently caught up on this. So I'm a big Ghostbusters fan. I love the original Ghostbusters. I don't mind the female remake.
I never watched any of the newer ones. I've seen the originals though.
With this Afterlife though, if you're a fan of the originals, it handles everything very, very well. It does everything that you'd want it to do, and it does it better than some other films that have tried to do a similar thing.
Nice.
It does a very similar thing to the end of what Star Wars did, but it does it better. And it plays with it again, like Spider-Man. It has a lot of fan service in it, but it tackles it in a way that feels right and doesn't feel forced. It feels like it makes sense, which is quite nice. But yeah, I mean, I've not got much to say about that apart from if you like Ghostbusters, go and watch it. It's good fun. It's enjoyable. I enjoyed it.
I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I've watched. Oh, I watched Howl's Moving Castle for the first time. I'm making my way through Studio Ghibli for the first time. I've seen Spirited Away and My Neighbor Totoro in the last like 6 months. So every now and then when I'm feeling like anime, but a little bit more, I go for a Studio Ghibli film because we have the whole collection on HBO Max. So Howl's Moving Castle has been highly recommended to me several times. So I gave it a whirl, and I gotta say, I know some people say Ghibli, whatever. I say Ghibli, so let's just get that out of the way.
Yeah, I say Ghibli as well.
It's Japanese Disney, but with more heart and more thought put into it. Is what I would compare it to. It's just got like like My Neighbor Totoro, like the sister story is just so like charming and cute. And like I told my brother, who's expecting another child, a second girl, in the next like 6 months, that he needs to watch it with his 2-year-old. So then when the next baby comes around, like that's like a good sister bonding movie that I could see them enjoying, because he's not gonna watch it otherwise.
Have you, so before we move on to another Ghibli film, specifically Totoro, have you read up about what supposedly some of it's based on?
No, no idea.
100% you need to. So
Okay.
the Totoro, the creature, is basically supposedly based on this mythological like folklore tale of this spiritual raccoon creature that leads people to the afterlife when they die.
No, Jesus.
And the story, so like when you read into it, the story is actually about the fact that basically one of the children goes off on that adventure and the other girl follows her, and the child dies. The other girl ends up following her into the afterlife, and that's where they meet Totoro, who leads them on their path. And the reason why the mother, when they go to the hospital, and the reason that I think it's the hospital, and the mother feels them there, is because she is passing herself, so she can
Jesus.
sense that they're. It's a really dark
Thanks for
film,
ruining
like,
that movie for me. My brother's not gonna watch
honestly,
it now. Fuck.
do some reading on it. It's a dark movie, but it's very cute looking. Like kids wouldn't understand that. You have to really read up on it.
I mean,
To
that's no
understand.
different than like any Disney princess movie
Oh,
being
100%.
rooted in a much darker, like Hans Christian.
I mean, Cinderella's
Fairy tale.
basically a story of modern slavery. It's
Yeah,
literally a
Beauty and
girl
the
kept
Beast
in
is about
slavery.
bestiality, and yeah, there's all sorts of stuff.
All sorts of strange and wonderful things.
Anyway, Howl's Moving Castle was very interesting because instead of, I feel like Disney. So I haven't watched what's that, Turning Red? I haven't watched that one yet. I'm pretty excited for that one though. The one where the girl turns into a giant red panda when she gets angry or embarrassed or whatever. That one just came out maybe last Friday.
Yeah, I've not watched that one.
Oh man, that looks fantastic. But I feel like Studio Ghibli, I don't even know. They kind of, they do whatever they want. Like, I mean, Disney does too, but usually Disney's based around like a princess or a prince or something. And so far, at least in Studio Ghibli, like it's usually based around some commoner, just some kids.
Yeah, I mean, Ghibli take on a lot of fairy tale and folklore stories, much like Disney does, and puts their own spin on it. So like most of the Disney princess stories are based on folklore stories from different countries.
Yeah, they're usually like French.
Yeah, and they're usually a lot darker, like the
Yeah.
original version, and they've obviously like Disneyfied it up so that it's a little bit more child friendly.
Digestible.
Yeah, and and again, it's like Ghibli does a lot of a similar sort of thing. Like it takes folklore stories, whether it be in it's from Japan or from other countries, and gives them a little bit of a twist. Now, not all of them are. Some of them are just beautifully told stories. Howl's Moving Castle is one of my favorite. I think it's such a visually stunning film.
It is. It is. So
and the story is great.
For me, that's the biggest selling point with Studio Ghibli. Like Disney has amazing animation these days, but there's something about that hand-drawn look that Studio Ghibli, I guess I don't know if they still do it. They don't really put out a ton of movies, right? At all.
So their most recent, I don't know if it's their most recent, but they put out one recently in the last 2 years. And it is the most disgusting looking thing I've ever seen from Ghibli. So the hand-drawn stuff, absolutely agree with you. Absolutely stunning. They released a film called The Earwig and the Witch.
Oh,
and
yeah.
it
Yeah,
is
I hate that.
like,
Yep.
yeah, CG, and it's vile, and
It pops up
looks
all
horrible.
the time as like, you should watch this. I'm like, I don't want to watch that. That looks awful.
That is the most recent Ghibli movie.
Oh, great. Well, okay.
Yeah.
The older movies
Vile.
that, I guess it's the same with Disney though, like The Lion King and The Little Mermaid, and any of those that were actually hand-drawn movies are fantastic. They're beautiful movies. But Studio Ghibli spends so much time and effort in the details of the little things, like the hat shop in Howl's Moving Castle. Like there's so much attention to the detail. And then like Spirited Away, the food, like it's just for me specifically as a graphic designer, like I love those little details that they went the extra mile So maybe a couple of people will be like, wow, that was great. But like, it doesn't add that much more to the story just by making it look more realistic food. Like it doesn't matter, but I'm really glad I'm
It's not
giving those
even.
movies a go.
I know 100%. It's not always just about the realism, though, is it? It's sometimes it's just adding like little drawn details that make it just so much more alive.
It's depth to
Have
the
you?
scene in general. Like it's no different
Yeah,
than if I had a blurred background or a white wall behind me, but like this adds my personality into this scene, and Studio Ghibli does just that. They just add their own little flair to what
whereas
they're
my
doing.
background's a shithole, hence why I've got the blurred background because my room is a mess at the moment.
Mine's a mess. It's just on shelves.
Have you had a chance to see Ponyo yet?
Not yet. That is on the list. I mean, they're all
I
on
would
the
have.
list.
So I love Ponyo. I think it's a great film. Not one of my favorite Ghiblis by any means, but it's a fantastic film, and it is their take on essentially on Little Mermaid. Is their take on the Little Mermaid to an extent. But there is and without ruining anything for you, there is a scene, and a lot of it's to do with like the water and underwater is being like heavily magical, a bit like the Little Mermaid. And there is a scene where the waves really pick up and it becomes like really, really aggressive waves, and every single wave has its own personality and like face, and it's like the sea itself is a living creature of these thousands
Nice.
of little faces and living, and it's just like the detail in that element of it I just think is fantastic.
Do you have a favorite Studio Ghibli besides My Neighbor Totoro, Spirited Away, or Howl's Moving Castle that I should watch next?
I do have a favorite. It's not everybody's favorite, and it's one of the longer ones.
I'm okay with long.
um
I love Batman. I watched Spider-Man again.
and that's Princess Mononoke.
That actually, I did start that. I got like 3 minutes into it, and I think I was sick or something. I'm just like, I can't do it today.
It is one of the longer ones. It can be. There are elements where it's a little bit slower, but the whole idea is very much. And again, without spoiling anything, it's very much about the idea of man creating these big industrial machines and destroying the magic of nature. And it's like those two forces battling against each other.
Interesting.
It's very, very well done. Again, beautifully drawn. Yeah, not that I would say that's my favorite, and then yeah, I do love Totoro. I don't know whether I put Totoro or How. I'll say How above Totoro, then Totoro, and then probably pretty much any other.
I like Spirited Away more than My Neighbor Totoro, I think, but
I do love Spirited Away. It's one of the ones I've seen the least actually. I've not seen every single Ghibli. I'm not going to claim I have because there's loads and I haven't seen them all. I've still got some on DVD I've never even watched.
I was talking to, I don't know if I was in a stream or what it was, but one time, this was maybe a year and a half ago, talking to Camp, and he told me to watch Porco Rosso. That was a Studio Ghibli that I've never seen, but that's on my list too, just so I can tell him that I remember him mentioning it, that I finally watched it.
I've seen clips of it, but again, I've never seen it. I've seen half of what's it called? Nausicaa Castle in the Sky. I think that's the title.
I don't know.
That I've seen half of that, and I found it utterly dull. Like
Really?
again, it was beautifully drawn, but I found that I just couldn't. I don't know if it was. I don't think the film is a bad film. I think I wasn't in the frame of mind to sit and watch it, and
That's fair.
the story just wasn't landing with me in that moment in time. So because sometimes it's like that, isn't it? Like it could be a really good film, but if you're just not in the frame of mind to take it on board, it feels worse than it is.
So when I had to go to the dentist again a month ago because I had a filling that cracked after I had a root canal done on the bottom tooth. So I went to my hometown where my dentist is because I'm dumb and I just don't have a dentist here. So I drove an hour and a half there. My dad was out of town, so I stayed at his house. So I was in like this super cozy basement, no windows, pitch black. They had this little fireplace thing that you can turn on and off and a TV. So I'm like, all right, I have some time. What should I watch? I'm like, Howl's Moving Castle sounds like that would hit the spot right now. And it was like just the perfect setting. So I definitely agree with you. Like you have to be in the right setting, both mentally and sometimes physically, to be like, I should watch something like this, especially if you don't know what it is. I had zero idea what Howl's Moving Castle was going to be until I started watching it. And then I'm super glad I did. And that's why I'm going to watch more Studio Ghibli.
And the thing is, like as you've alluded to, there's so much detail in them. Actually, they're not the sort of films that you can just have on in the background while you're doing
No,
other
not
things.
at
Like
all.
you've really got to pay attention to the little details
Yep.
to understand everything. And sometimes you just, like you say, if you're ill, if you're not feeling it, it's hard to pay attention to those little details. And actually,
Yeah.
more often than not, you just want to put on something you've seen a million times,
Exactly.
just so you don't have to pay attention to it.
Spider-Man.
Like,
Batman.
yeah, for me, it's
Harry
Iron Man
Potter.
2. I know it's the worst Iron Man, but I love it.
I've seen
Like if I'm ill,
it,
Iron Man
with
2.
Mickey Rourke, that one.
Yeah,
I saw Iron
yeah.
Man 3 probably like 25 times because it used to play on one channel all the time when I was in college. So I watched it like every day.
My go-to films whenever I'm ill, Iron Man 2 and the original animated Transformers film from the 80s.
That
Like
makes sense.
without fail.
Stan Bush.
Stan Bush all the way. All the way. I mean, we didn't have him on the show for nothing.
Well,
Well,
maybe.
it was good fun. It was good fun.
Good fun.
While we're talking about anime, though, I can bring a new anime to the table because I haven't.
Same.
The last couple of
Multiple.
episodes, I haven't watched new anime, but I actually have sat down and watched some. But in between playing lots of Elden Ring, which I'll talk about in a minute, I have been watching since Funimation has moved over to Crunchyroll, and now we've got access to a lot more anime than we had before. I have been watching, and I've had to check the name because I only remember half of it off the top of my head. So it is called Mushoku Tensei Jobless Reincarnation. Jobless Reincarnation is the bit that I remember because obviously that bit's in English and it's easy for me to remember.
Oh, this is the one that you told me about, right?
Yeah, I mentioned this previously, Shi. So it's your like isekai style. Isekai? What am I talking about? It's that style in which they get transported to another world, standard isekai style, and except this one's got a slight twist, a bit like the slime.
The time I got
When I got
reincarnated as a slime.
as a slime, a bit like that. The twist is that he's like in his late 20s, early 30s when he dies in our world, gets transported into another world and reincarnated, but he's reincarnated as a brand new born baby with all of his memories, everything from his old life. So he's a baby that can think like a 28-year-old male.
One time I heard somebody say that the light at the end of the tunnel is just the light of the operation room when you're born.
Well, exactly.
Isn't that deep? Oh, fuck with you a
that
little
is-
bit.
And we're gonna have to end this podcast now because I've been fucked with. I don't know what to do with that piece of information.
Maybe that'll be my little clip in the intro. Get people thinking.
But yeah, no, it's interesting because we normally see them appear and they're already a fully grown adult character and they've got all these new powers they have to learn. But in this, he is a baby. So firstly, he's just a baby. There's nothing he can do but be a baby. But then, like when he gets to like the age of 4 or 5, and he's like now in his mind is in his 30s, but he's in a 4-year-old body. He starts to learn the magic and how everything in that world works. And he's like building up his body to be able to do stuff like use magic, really powerful magic, and he's using it outside of the rules of the world because he's like learning to do it differently. And he's applying his brain from his world to everything. So by the time you get so I'm on episode 12 out of 24. By this point, he is 10 years old. So he's now like 40 years old in his mind, but he's a 10-year-old boy. So he thinks like an adult. He makes decisions like an adult. There's a little bit of fan servicey stuff in it where he like steals panties and like grabs boobies because he's an adult but in a 10-year-old's body. But they're very few and far between scenes. Like we're talking one scene every couple of episodes for that's no more than 5 seconds, 10 seconds. It doesn't ruin anything by any means. But no, it's interesting. It's interesting because a lot of the anime takes place just in his mind, as like not in like you're seeing him, but it's his thought process of how they're going to handle this situation.
Nice.
So far I've really enjoyed it, and it comes away from what we know about that style of anime in that they arrive, they've got loads of powers, they get given the best sword in the world, suddenly they're the most powerful hero in the world, they've done nothing to gain it. They're just there with all these powers, where actually he's had to spend the first 10 years of his life learning everything to become this like powerful 10-year-old
That's
who
interesting.
still can actually get his ass kicked. Like he's by no means a warrior. Like if he goes in a fist, if he was to do a fist to fist combat, he'd get his ass handed to him. He's good with magic, and that's it. Like he's shit with physical combat. So it's interesting to see that he's got all these weaknesses as well. He's not, because obviously Slime is a prime example where arguably he doesn't really have any weakness. He's been bested by one character in the entire show so far, and even that was loosely bested at best.
Yeah. So I'm almost done with the first season is all. I'm not super far in the time I got reincarnated as a slime. That's what you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
Have you watched all of it?
I'm not fully up to date, but I'm
Because the
most
second
of the
season's
I'm about
done, I
halfway.
think.
I'm about halfway through second season.
Nice.
But you can see in the first season how overpowered he is. Like
Yeah.
his character he's insanely overpowered. And yeah, but when you get through it, you'll see what I mean. In that there is literally one person he has a fight with where you think he might actually lose this. This is not going well. And the rest of the time, he's like, oh, he's just like overpowered. He's gonna win this.
Especially when they hype it up like, oh, a demon lord, and then they're like, how will he do it? And then it's like 5 minutes left in the episode, and you're just like, oh, they'll take care of it. They'll figure it out.
It just like engulfs them in one gulp with
Yeah.
special engulfing magic, and you're just like, oh, job done.
I love that show though. It's so, I know Mike has said it several times. It's just like a great Saturday morning cartoon,
Yeah.
but it mashes up like that immature cartoon with like adult humor and like boobs and like boobs. It's just a good, I don't know. It's a good change up from like the stuff I had been watching like My Hero Academia and Demon Slayer and stuff. So you want
Are you up to date with Demon Slayer?
No, I still haven't watched that,
Oh.
and that's because I've been watching this other stuff. So I've been talking to my wife, and I'm like, "Will you please just pick any anime? I don't care what it is, and I will watch it with you." So I know she watched Beastars, which is on Netflix here, and there's a season 2, and she's only watched a couple episodes. I'm like, if I have to watch Beastars with you, like if I have to watch the first season by myself to catch up, and then watch second season with you, if you will do it, I will watch it. So that might happen. I really hope not, because I don't really care about that.
Out of curiosity, what drew her to Beastars? Like, what was it about Beastars that made her go, that's what I want to watch?
It popped up on her Netflix, and it was COVID pandemic, and we were locked in our house. That's about it.
So there was nothing specific that made her go, that's the show for me.
She likes weird stuff, and I think she just gave it a shot, and then she got sucked in. I don't think she knew anything about it or had planned to binge it. It just kind of happened. So then, like maybe 2 weeks ago, she's like wanting to watch something, and for some reason we landed on Prison School, which you had mentioned to me maybe a year ago, and I had watched one episode of, and I'm like, all right, maybe I'll come back to this. Becca absolutely loved it. It's just so ridiculous and so in your face the entire time to the point where sometimes you're like, why is this a show? But she loved every second of it. So I'm bummed that there's only one season of that, because it was pretty funny, and it seemed like things were just finally going to start to happen more so in terms of like what's next. Besides that, we've been watching Wolf's Rain, which I think is from like the late 90s. It was one she remembered watching like on Cartoon Network late at night as a child. So we've revisited that. We're only a couple episodes into that. Mike had suggested Food Wars. He watched the first episode and was like, hey, you should check this out. So I did, and that was pretty great. So then I showed Becca one episode of Food Wars, and it didn't really grasp her as much as it grasped me. So that might not be the answer for her. I've also been spending a lot of time with Black Clover, which I don't think any of you guys have watched yet, to my knowledge.
I haven't. Friend of the show, Ryan, has.
Yeah, he has watched it. I love Black Clover. Two of my good friends that I know in real life, I guess I could say, that are anime nerds, both recommended that I push Black Clover to the top of the list. So I did. And to me, it's just got that Black Clover. It's got the My Hero charm, but it's more mixed with like, it's not really like a medieval setting, but it kind of feels like it. And it's magic. So I don't know how many episodes I'm in, 30, 40. but
out of
it's
like 100 and something
there's
ridiculous.
there's a lot of them. Yeah, and Ryan said that the manga has, I think the manga is still going or just ended, and the show is technically on hiatus. It's not done necessarily, but he made it sound like it was done. I'm hoping that gets
It
picked
sounds
up.
like it's not. Yeah, it sounds like it's not going to continue, but there's not to say another studio
It's
might
a
come in
really
and
Yeah, I was gonna say it's a really popular anime though. So for them to just say like, well, you'll figure out the end of the story if you care. You can read the manga, but hopefully they pick that up because it's good. I feel like sometimes I have a hard time binging anime for some reason, even with My Hero, which I've seen 3 times now, and I loved every second of it. I just can't watch more than like 6 episodes at a time, especially if I haven't seen it before. Usually My Hero I like leave on in the background. Like if I'm doing work stuff, I can have it on a monitor and just listen to it. I know what's happening. But with Black Clover or Slime, like I kind of have to pay attention. I'm not one of those people that like watches shows in the background while they clean their house. Like I have to sit and pay attention. And if I don't have subtitles on, I have to hear every word. And if I don't, I will rewind that shit 10 times until I understand exactly what they're saying. So
no, I completely agree with you on that.
So it takes me some time, but now that I've kind of learned that I need to have maybe more than one anime in the rotation. So if I'm not feeling like, oh, Black Clover, I don't want to watch that, then I have a couple of options of things to throw into the mix and keep my attention span a little more focused.
A couple of things on what you just said. Firstly, imagine if like Hollywood did that, like Black Clover did. Is imagine if like they got to the 5th Harry Potter film,
Yeah, they
and then just released a statement afterwards. Went, if you want to know how this ends, go read the books.
Or it's just like, here's a new Harry Potter. We couldn't get Daniel Radcliffe to come back, so here's some other guy.
But yeah, just imagine just going, yeah, we don't really want to make it anymore. So if you want to know what happens, just well, look it up yourself. Basically,
Yeah, there's got to be more to that than it seems, because there's no way they would do that. It's not like it's SpongeBob. Like, who cares if that ends? But like a show that has a very strong story driven. I mean, it's all based on a story, and the story is I think the manga is done. I'm pretty sure the manga's done.
It's probably to do with a studio rights thing.
Maybe
as to who owns the rights to the studio and or who owns the rights to make it.
Maybe part of it had to deal with a merger too. I mean, that's possible. So who knows what's going to happen once we end up with this giant conglomerate that is Crunchyroll.
I'll keep you on today. I'm very tired.
Just start talking about Elden Ring. You'll wake up.
No, I mean, I'm awake. I'm just and also anybody who's watched this have probably seen me pull some very strange faces. As I said at the beginning of the episode, I've been helping a friend renovate his house. I'm in so much pain. My job is Monday to Friday sitting at a computer. I am not used to helping fit kitchens and lug wood around. My legs feel like they have been literally beaten to a pulp by Mike Tyson. Like they're in so much pain right now, which is why I'm like, oh God, I can't. Just moving hurts.
I just can't breathe through my nose, so I'm like sweating and like coughing and like.
Yeah, I mean, one day we might do an episode where cheese doesn't sound like shit.
I doubt it.
Who knows when that'll be, though? No, what I was going to say is, and I know I've mentioned this before, and I'm going to say it again. If you want stone bonkers, absolutely fucking mental, Kill la Kill.
So I do have a list of all of those that you recommended, and we're going to watch just one of each. But Kill la Kill was the top one that I feel interested in because the animation style is amazing.
It is stunning, and it is just stone bonkers mad, but in a great way. I've got one to add to that list, which just came to me when you mentioned about Beastars. BNA, Brand New Animal.
How would I find it? Do I need to search Brand New Animal or BNA?
Either or. I think it's in the UK. It was on Netflix under Brand New Animal, under BNA actually. So you should be able to find it somewhere, I'd imagine. But it's very much, I think I've not seen Beastars, but what I've seen of it, Beastars is very much about like humanoid animal people.
It's just animals that go to school. No, it's just animals, but they're still like, the wolf is still a predator. So like he's got to stay away from the rabbit or he'll eat her. And then they like fall in love.
So BNA is a little bit similar in that there are humans, but then there were also these people that are humanoid animals that like are almost forced off to live in their own city because the humans don't trust them because they're like there's like a wolf man and there's like a rabbit person and all sorts. But it's a really good story.
Beastars is literally Zootopia, but for adults.
Yeah, that's a lot what Brand New Animal is, except it's also got loads of like what's the term? It's got loads of human hating on them. This is full of human hate, which is pretty much everything.
I was going to say, welcome to the world.
Welcome to human hate.
Welcome to 2022.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, coming away from anime, and I wanted to say this at the top of the episode because I feel like it's been a while, and actually we've never actually stated this, but for any of our listeners, we are not paid, nor are we professional critics. Every single thing you hear from us is purely our opinion, and therefore
at the time of recording.
At the time, yeah, which changes regularly, and is also therefore extremely subjective. For example, Cheese really likes Tony Hawk's, so therefore most skating-based games are probably going to be high on his list, and he might have a good thing to say about them. I really like fucking weird Japanese games, so you know what most people would look at and go, "That's fucking weird." I'll go, "That's up my street."
I did get Skatebird, that game.
See, literally, before this episode started, we were talking about whether Cheese would play Tony Hawk Pro Farmer, a game in which you skate around a farm planting plants and then sowing.
Stardew Hawk Pro Farmer.
Yeah.
Pro Valley. I don't know.
But yeah, I just wanted to remind our listeners that none of these are like we're not professional critics. We're not here reviewing games professionally. We're just giving you our opinions because we like to talk.
We're professional idiots, and you're listening.
We
to
are
us
professional.
You either know us or you accidentally clicked on this. So welcome.
And now you're going, why am I listening to this? But I'm going to stick around and listen some more because they might have some nice things to say. So on the nice things to say, because as Cheese has already set up, the British are all negative. What do you expect? Our country is grey 95% of the time. Grey and rainy.
That's fair, and historically, nothing's gone super well for you.
That is untrue. Historically, lots have gone very well for the UK.
I mean,
one of the largest empires in the world at one point. Just saying.
That's only because the Roman Empire didn't exist.
But we have a pretty shocking government. Pretty shocking pricing structure at the moment. Pretty shocking weather.
How much is gas there right now? Just curious.
More expensive than it should be.
It's like
I can't give you an exact price because I don't know, but I know that it's costing me nearly, I'd say, a third more than it would normally cost me to fill up my tank.
That's a lot. It's not. It hasn't hit that high of prices here yet, but I know other parts of the country it's 2.5 times what it was.
Well, I was literally just before this episode watching a financial expert saying that the UK is about to enter the worst financial crisis it's had in the last like 40 years.
Jeez.
So great times ahead for us.
Yay.
I'll definitely will be affording that PC to record better podcasts. Never. So anyway, back to the matter at hand. I can't even speak now. I'm broken. I'm a broken man. I have been playing a lot, not as much as some people, only 65 hours so far, but a lot of Elden Ring.
That's a lot of Elden Ring in what, like 3 weeks?
Some people are on like 150 hours though, so it's not as much as some people. But then I do also work and renovate houses and do other things with my day. So yeah, I'm 65 hours in. I have done a full completion run. I have completed the game already, like the main campaign. I've done every side boss that I found. I know after completing it, I looked up and I know there's a load I haven't found, but not a huge amount. I've done the bulk of everything, and all I've also cleared every boss I wanted to clear, like the ones I was aware of, including I can't remember her name, Millennia, who is meant to be like the hardest Soulsborne boss ever made.
Interesting.
And I am on the final boss for my New Game Plus run, although I will admit in my New Game Plus one, I literally critical pathed only because I was curious as to how quickly I could get through New Game Plus. Although I'm struggling with the final boss now. I wasn't. I'm not that bothered about New Game Plus because I've completed it, so it's fine. What I will say, firstly, I am not a Soulsborne fan specifically. I've played Bloodborne. I enjoyed it. I've played Demon Souls. I enjoyed it, but it was a bit cheesy in that you could cheese the fuck out of it, and it was like there were points it was just like this is ridiculously easy. And I played the Jedi one that I know that's not made by From Software, but it's of a similar premise. That's the one. I've not played any of the Dark Souls games. So I'm not a huge Soulsborne fan, but I have enjoyed some of them. I've not played Sekiro either. This doesn't feel like a Soulsborne game, in my opinion. It has Soulsborne bosses, yes. In between those bosses, though, where it's so open world, it feels free. And because my issue with Bloodborne, for example, isn't, and the same with Demon Souls, it's not the bosses. Yes, the bosses are hard, but they're built to be hard. That's fine. It's the path between the bosses that I fucking hate because they're linear. They're full of absolute dickhead enemies that are built in a way that they are there to piss you off to an unbelievable level. And it's usually the path between the bosses where you die the most because they're a real struggle.
Yeah.
The actual bosses themselves, you might get stuck on a boss and it takes you 6 or 7 attempts, but you could end up getting stuck on a path for like 4 days trying to get to a boss because it's fucking infuriating. But Elden Ring breaks that down in the fact that unless if you go into what it refers to as a legacy dungeon, which is the old style of linear pathway, everything else is open world. So get stuck on a boss, okay, we'll just go away and level up by just running around the open world, discovering things, killing random enemies, fighting. You fight whoever you want because actually, if you come across an enemy and go, I don't want to fight that, you just run away because it's open world and you can do that, and eventually they'll stop chasing you. You don't have to run that far either. And you've got a horse, so you can run away really quickly on a horse. You don't even have to do the running; the horse runs you away. And the enemies generally don't follow you. If you ride off in a horse, in a horse, no one rides off in a horse. That's ridiculous. If you ride off on a horse,
if you're in a horse, that's even more ridiculous.
That's what I mean. If you're in a horse, you're probably playing a different game that we will not be discussing. But no, if you ride away on your horse, usually you can get away in a matter of like 5 seconds. Then they'll stop following you. So, and this is where to me it doesn't necessarily feel like a Soulsborne game because you can massively over level without having to just do the same like linear path over and over and over again because you can go and explore. And so not the first boss, but one of the first major bosses, a lot of people have said, oh, you know what? It's been a real struggle. I can't remember his name. The Omen person. Oh, I can't remember his name. I've beaten him now, so I've forgotten about him. But basically, the first boss that a lot of people fight. Oh, Margot, that's his name. Margit or Margot. He's really hard because not because he's got particularly high health bar or anything, but just because he's very quick and he's got like quite big hitting moves. And if you go and take him on a level 5, he can be quite difficult if you're not particularly good at dodging attacks or blocking them. But you can go away and level up you can get to like level 100 in the first area and then go back and fight him and you can just floor him because you're well over leveled. And whatever anybody tells you, over leveling is a legitimate strategy because that is it's there to do.
That's what I would do.
Like, I don't think there is any illegitimate strategies unless if the strategy involves using a glitch to physically break the game. But like, if you want to learn magic and stand back and not get hit and just fire spells at them, it's built into the game. Legitimate strategy. If you want to stand at the back with arrows, legitimate strategy. These things are there. There's a lot of gatekeeping in Soulsborne games and it really pisses me off. But ultimately, you can go and explore. You can go and find things. There's the thing that really, really, really sets it apart for me, though, and I'd say it's the closest game to a 10 out of 10 that we've had in a very long time. Easily a 9.7 9.6, 9.7. It's not perfect. It does have its issues. It has a few little glitchy issues here or there. I know it had a few crashing issues on PC. There are a few things that I find a little bit frustrating. It's not perfect. I'll give it that, but it is as close to perfect as I think any video game I've played for a very long time is.
Nice.
The thing that it does so fantastically well that so many games don't do, particularly big open world games, is its world building is phenomenal. The world feels alive. It feels interesting to explore. Every enemy feels purposeful. And I was having this conversation in comparison to Pokemon, for example, with Max the other day, in that the new Pokemon game, it just felt like Pokemon were just dropped in random places and they were just there. There was no real reason for them to be there. They were just there. Every single enemy in Elden Ring feels purposefully placed. So you go into a mine and there are minor enemies, like there are monsters mining the walls being overseen by armed guards. Makes sense. You go into a swamp area and there are these like weird little swamp people and these giant shrimps. Makes sense. You go to like an abandoned, like an old ruined fort, and there's a little camp set up with 6 or 7 men patrolling, all armed guards. Makes sense. Like everything feels like it is it makes sense. Nothing feels out of place. Nothing feels like it shouldn't be there. And as you start to develop, it's a massive world. And as you start to kind of go around the map, you find that more and more like, oh, I'm in a fireplace. Oh, there's like fire slugs coming out of the oh, that makes sense. They're fire slugs. That's where they should be, in the fire. You go into the mounting of the giants, and there's giants everywhere. Shocking. So yeah, the world building is fantastic. The combat is very Soulsborne. That's kind of where the Dark Soulsy Soulsborne stuff kind of really you feel it is in the combat. But again, you can over level so much that it doesn't feel like the old like the Soulsborne games that I have played, where you just feel frustrated and like you've got to beat it by learning you don't have to learn every single pattern, because you can just over level and then floor something easily. And so I ended my first run a level 136, I think I was 137, something around that sort of mark. And I floored the last boss first time. Like the last 4 bosses, I first timed all of them. I was using a dirty build. It was what's called a bleed build, which basically causes bleed on the enemies. I also had an overpowered Ash of War, which is an ability, which was where I can stomp the ground and ice comes out of it, and it was OP as anything. They've actually patched it so that it's less powerful now because it was so overpowered. And you can summon monsters to help you. And one of the summons is called a Mimic Tier, and it basically creates an exact copy of you to fight alongside you. But it can take more damage than you. But it has all your weapons, all your abilities that you have available to you. And again, overpowered, because the more powerful you are and the better equipment you have, the better equipment this Mimic Tier has. And like I say, it can tank like it's ridiculous. Again, they've now patched it so it's less powerful because the Mimic Tier was far too powerful. I've seen TikToks of people walk into a boss room, summon their Mimic Tier, stop playing, eat their cereal, and just let their summon kill the entire boss on its own, because that's how powerful it was. It's ridiculous. What I will say, if you've never played a Soulsborne game,
nope,
purely for the world building, I would advise trying it out. If you don't want to spend the money on it, see if you can borrow it from a friend or something. See if you can have a play at somebody else's. If somebody else has a copy of it, just spend 20 minutes and see how you feel with it at first. But just from the world building, it's worth a punt, because the exploration on it is fantastic.
I've been on the fence about this game for a while because I tried to play Bloodborne once and I struggled horribly. And I feel like the older I get and the more games I play, like I kind of know my lane. Like I kind of know what my corner of the gaming world is, and it's not games like this.
What I can say is you can't get a skateboard in Elden Ring. You get a horse, and that horse can't get skates on his feet. So
I was talking to Jedi about this, and he said that of all the Soulsborne games, though, like this is the most accessible because you can kind of do it however
100%.
you want to. So I almost bought it again the other day. There's been several times it's been like in my shopping cart, and I just have to hit that one button to commit. But I just feel like if I wait a couple of months, I could get it on sale, and then I won't feel so cornered. I won't feel like so much pressure to play it. And once my friends are done playing it, they'll gladly let me borrow it. So I think I'll probably just wait and see. It's just I'm all for a game that's got a ton of hype, but I'm not all for a game that I'm gonna just rage at and not want to play anymore and have wasted $60. So nothing against
Yeah,
that
and
game.
I get that.
Yeah, it's just I might as well wait. And there's so much other stuff that I have been playing and want to play that there's no point in spending the money on this yet.
No, and I get that completely. And like, I mean, as we said at the top of the episode about my views on spending the money on the cinema when I'm unsure, like
Yeah.
I would never say to someone, go out and spend £60 on a game that you're not sure about, because it's a lot of money to blow on a game that you end up hating and have to get rid of.
I don't think I'll hate it. It's just I don't want to suck at it so bad that I get mad at it and then I don't want to play it anymore.
No,
I'd
but
rather
you
like,
could end up
know.
hating it. You don't know.
Yeah, and I could end up loving it, and I hope I
Right.
do love it like everybody else loves it. It's just like I would rather. It's kind of like when I started watching anime. It's like, yeah, I could start with One Piece and watch 1,000 episodes, or I can pick a show that has 10 episodes and see what I like. So I just feel like this
Yeah.
is. I've played Bloodborne for like 6 hours and sucked so bad that I'm just like, maybe I should try that again before I dip my feet into Elden Ring. That's gonna take 100 hours of my life.
No, I get that completely, and I was exactly the same as you. Before I played my first ever Soulsborne game, I refused to buy one, and I think I only ended up playing Bloodborne because it went on PlayStation Plus, and I
Yeah,
thought, you
that's
know
why
what,
I have
it's free.
Same.
Now's the time to give it a try because it's free. I would never have spent money on a Soulsborne game prior to that, and I get that completely. Like, it's a lot of money to put into something that you might not end up enjoying.
Right.
And I've fallen for the hype before. I bought Breath of the Wild, and I absolutely fucking hated it.
I bought Breath of the Wild and I've never even finished it.
I literally put about 6 hours in, and I was like, I hate this. I hate everything about it. And a lot of people are comparing the two games, and I don't even think they're close to comparable, apart from the fact they're both open worlds and they don't really tell you where to go. But they're not even on the same scale, to be honest. But no, 100%, I would agree with you. Like, if Soulsborne's style games aren't your thing, see if you can borrow a copy from a friend when they're done with it, or wait until it's on sale and then give it a go. But if you're already on the fence and you're close and you're thinking, you know what, I probably will enjoy it, and I should look at picking this up at some point, get it because you'll enjoy it.
Yeah.
I do the like PlayStation share thing that you can do, so it only cost me £23, which is kind of the reason why I bought it, because I thought, you know what, £23 for what everybody's claiming is a 10 out of 10 game.
Yeah.
And now that I've got 65 hours in it, that's working out something like 50p an hour. I'm not going to do the actual maths, but it's something along those lines. It's less than that, actually. Or more than... No, yeah, less than that.
Yeah, and I some of my close friends have been playing it a lot, and they've been like, hey, you should get this. You could help me out. I can help you out, because I know there's an element where like you can have somebody drop in to help you, but they don't get any of the loot or whatever. But I really don't think I would hate it by any means. It's just like... that's such a time commitment, and it's just there's too much other stuff I gotta do and play. So we're at the hour and 7-minute mark, but let me just touch on what I've been playing quick.
Yeah, no, definitely.
I went back and played Spider-Man again, and I've said several times on this podcast again that Spider-Man and God of War are like my two favorite games. But now I think I have a third favorite game to throw into that mix, and that is Celeste.
I thought you were about to say it's Spider of War. It's a new God of War Spider-Man crossover.
Hawk Pro Skater.
Farming.
I started playing Celeste maybe like a year and a half ago. Played the first chapter or two, died a lot, got frustrated. I was just like, no. And then I just kept seeing people play it all this time, and people keep saying how it's this amazing game and it's one of their favorites they've ever played. And I saw Aiden stream it. I don't know if Jedi streamed it, Retro streamed it, like all these people I know. I'm like, all right, I don't know what it is about this game, but I'm going to find out. So just recently, itch.io had a, I don't even know what it was called, a bundle for Ukraine or something. So you could spend $10.
Yeah, it was like
$10 for 992 indie games, basically, is what it was.
Yeah, it was like a money raising.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
They do the bundles quite often, don't they? Of like, oh, $10 for all these games, but
Yep.
this one was specifically to help raise funds to support Ukraine.
And there were some gems in there for $10 total. So I bought it, and I've already played a couple of the games, but Celeste was part of it. There was one called Hidden Folks that I had played at the Pop Culture Museum in Seattle when I visited, and another one called Minute, I think. So far I've only played Celeste and Hidden Folks. Hidden Folks is kind of like a Where's Waldo book where you got to like find all
Mhm.
these people in this giant map, and it's a fun game. I think you guys call it Where's Wally or something, don't you?
We do indeed.
Yeah. Anyway, Celeste. So I dove back into it and I quickly fell in love with this game. It's one of those games that's so charming that no matter how many times you die, and you're going to die a lot, it still holds your attention and you want to just keep trying. You want to keep playing it again and again and again. And when I wasn't playing the game, I was thinking about playing it. And it's not even that complicated of a game. There's a couple options. You can jump, you can dash, and you can cling. Basically, you can jump against a flat wall and you can hold on for a second before you start to slide down. That's it. So that's pretty accessible for anybody. My wife could play this game. She'd struggle, but she could figure it out. It's not like you have to hit 1,000 different buttons. And I played with a controller because it was easier for me than the keyboard controls, which were like X, C, V, and the arrows. It was weird. So basically, you're this girl, Madeline, and you're climbing this mountain, and she basically ends up facing her own anxiety and depression and all this stuff. And it's a story about mental health and her kind of just like coming to terms with herself, I guess. But it's just so well done, and the music is beautiful, and the game is beautiful, and it's just so simple, but it's not. And Retro, our friend Retro, it was kind of the one that got me to play it again. And he mostly plays retro games, but he loves this game too. And so he kind of helped me out with finding a couple of the little hidden treasures and whatever after the fact. But I think I died a total of 2,400 times in my playthrough of the main story, which is a lot of deaths. I think if I did it again, I could probably cut it in half, if not like by 60%. And there's just a ton of things to go back and collect, and then that unlocks a couple more chapters down the road. But it's just, if you haven't played it, I think it's on Game Pass, or it used to be. You can typically pick it up for like $20. It'll take you about 10 hours to beat, I would say, unless you die a lot. I think it took me 11 hours total to play the 7 main chapters of the 9. I think the 8th and 9th are maybe bonus. But it's just a good, simple game. And I kind of think games like that, similar to like Ori and the Blind Forest, but that's way more complicated. But I think those kinds of games are kind of my thing. Like that might be my little corner of the gaming library that I need to focus on. So I think after this, I'll go back to Ori and the Will of the Wisps, which I have started. Go back and play that, and then maybe Hollow Knight, which I had also started and put some hours into. But I think those are just fun communities to be a part of. I streamed Celeste a couple of days and had some new people come in, and everybody's just so helpful when it comes to those games that they love and hold so dearly to themselves that they want to share that. So I think I might just keep playing games like that. Celeste is a fun game. Like, honestly, I listened to the score, the soundtrack of Celeste while I was at work on Wednesday, I think last week, and it's just a kind of a calming, kind of a Stardew Valley vibe, and same with the overall look of the game. It's very like that pixelated 8-bit, 64-bit, whatever it's called, 16-bit style. So if you like games like that, you gotta play Celeste.
Yeah, it's one I've toyed with a lot, so I'll probably give it a go once I'm not so obsessed with Elden Ring.
It would be a good game to come down off of Elden Ring with. It's just such a simple game, and once you get a hang of the 3 mechanics, you're kind of golden. It's just go time, and there's little strawberries you can collect along the way, which they even tell you in the game, which I absolutely loved. They say from the very beginning, you don't have to collect these. This is literally just a bragging point for you and your friends, but other than that, you don't have to worry about them. So that helps a lot, because there are so many times where you're like, oh, there's a strawberry just off to the side of the screen. I could probably get it, but that's going to take you probably 20 minutes to get successfully and get back on track to where you're going. So I loved that it kind of said, like, there's another time it says, usually when you're frustrated and have played too long and are stuck on a part, you need to just take a break. So hit pause, take a break, and come back. Like, it's a very self-aware game. And it's funny that it's about mental health when you're going to rage a little bit, but you're going to kind of rage with a smile on your face, and you're going to come back and play some more.
Interesting. I might play it and try to avoid the strawberries.
I would definitely avoid the strawberries, because if anything, you'll have to go back and play through a second time to get some of the other collectibles to unlock the next levels, but the strawberries really don't matter anyway.
Well, I just don't like strawberries.
This is just a good game to like sit on the couch and unwind with. Like, it's nothing complicated. You don't have to pay too much attention. It's just a jump around from point A to point B, and you'll move on to the next checkpoint, and then you just do it again over and over and over. But there's different objects and different ways and stuff that you can move throughout the levels as you get through each chapter. So it keeps your attention and it keeps it all fresh. So I was actually pretty impressed by this little indie game that could.
I'm just sorry. What I was listening to everything you said, but I was also getting some weird feedback from your mic. But I don't know if it was
my
in
windows
the
open
recording
my windows open and our mini blinds are pushed up, so it just suddenly got really windy, and now it's starting to shake the little.
I wondered. It's just
slats.
like, what the fuck is that noise going on in the background?
It's only happened a couple of times, and I didn't think it would pick up on my mic, but it probably has a couple of times in the last maybe 5 or 10 minutes.
I only just noticed it. I thought it was feedback on your mic, but obviously you've got mad blinds. It's mad blinds.
It's the wind coming through my window.
But yeah, no. Interesting. I will give Celeste a go.
Sure.
If it's on Game Pass specifically, because I don't have a PC that can play anything outside of, well, it can barely play Discord. That's not the game.
I have a cheap laptop that I put Celeste on yesterday, and it runs perfectly. So it really is not a very taxing game on any system. So if you have a computer, it will run it.
I don't know. You're asking a lot.
It'll run it.
It can just about run Command and Conquer 1. Just about.
I mean, it'll probably work.
It'll probably.
Yeah.
It's
worth trying.
Well, I think that's the episode, Chase.
I think so too. We're getting pretty good at this 2-man thing.
Yeah, we're good. Who needs Mike? Yeah. We'll just do all this shit without him. So, do you want to wrap us up? Do you want me to wrap us up? You know what you're doing? Remember? Been a while.
Like, comment, subscribe. We're on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, Apple Podcasts, whatever it's called. You'll find us on Spotify or YouTube, or a link on our Twitter page. And if you're listening to this part, you already found us, so this is kind of counterproductive.
Exactly. But you may have noticed that we have started being more active on Twitter because we know that we are shit at it.
Yeah, we talked about this a lot in the last episode. We're just trying to up our game, and we just need some feedback on what we're doing well, what we're not doing well, what changes we should try out. We have a lot of ideas, and we're all living our lives outside of this because this is our little passion project. So we don't always know the answers, but we're trying to figure it out. Exactly.
And if you have any views, any opinions on any of the things we spoke about today, if you want to tell us that Batman's shit, that Celeste is the worst, and that you hate Elden Ring, then by all means do tell us that.
If you've got a favorite Studio Ghibli movie that you want me to watch and review, I gladly will do that, because I'm not playing some of these games that these other guys are. So I'll stick to what I know, and movies is seeming to be my little shtick. Netflix
and if you want to call Cheese out for saying that everyone in the UK is a negative bastard, then also call him out.
Okay, but am I wrong? Am I wrong? Am I wrong?
I can't speak for an entire nation, and I don't plan on speaking for an entire nation. And on that note, we've done the spiel. We've ended the episode. We'll see you all later.
Goodbye.
XXXD.